How fast do you think this is going to get dropped? Do you really think this charge is going to stick? I am a multi-millionaire.
That's JiDion, in handcuffs, outside a McDonald's in Michigan, threatening the police officers who are arresting him with the size of his bank account. His own stream is still running while it happens. He complains that he's too big for the back seat and orders his friends to go get him a lawyer. It's the moment that ended his streaming career forever. And honestly, it's not even the craziest thing that has happened to him on camera. JiDion is a guy who got suspended for running a business out of his own high school, who got a haircut in the stands of the US Open, who blew an air horn at Wimbledon, who fell asleep courtside at a WNBA game and got banned from the NBA for life, who got banned from Twitch, and who then turned around, found God, deleted his pranks, took up boxing, and reinvented himself as a Christian predator catcher. And after all of that, he still ended up in the back of that police car. So, the question we really need to ask is a simple one. How many times can one creator reinvent himself before his audience just stops following him? To understand how we got here, you have to go back to a high schooler in Houston with a camera and absolutely no shame. JiDion Adams started his channel in 2018 with challenge videos and vlogs filmed in his school hallways. And one of his first hits was literally about getting suspended for hustling his classmates. He wasn't rich and he wasn't connected. And for a while, he was delivering Uber Eats just to pay for his videos. But even back then, JiDion understood something that takes most creators years to figure out. Watch any of his early videos and you'll see the same trick over and over. He walks up to a total stranger, introduces himself as DeMarcus Cousins III, and commits to the bit so hard that the other person has no idea what to do with him. That awkward silence was the entire product. And the school had trained him perfectly for this. He'd spent years finding out exactly how far he could push authority before it pushed back. And now he was doing it with a camera rolling. By 2021, he had cracked the formula wide open. He walked into a Best Buy with no shirt on and got escorted out. He snuck into a random lecture and got a full haircut in the middle of class. And that one clip exploded on TikTok and introduced him to millions of people overnight. He crashed a lecture at Harvard just because he could. Malls, stadiums, restaurants, anywhere with security guards and confused bystanders became his set. And you have to understand what he'd figured out here, because it's really clever in the most chaotic way possible. JiDion was selling discomfort, and discomfort is free. He would pose as employees, talk his way into places he had absolutely no business being, and then let the environment do the comedy for him. Every security guard grabbing his arm was a thumbnail. Every ejection was a video tile, and every ban was a badge of honor. The whole business model was built on the question of how far is too far, and the problem with that business model is that eventually you find out. January 2022, one day after JiDion becomes a Twitch partner, he notices that Pokimane, one of the biggest streamers on the planet, has fewer views than him that day. So he sends his entire audience to flood her chat with spam until she's forced to end her stream. And the internet did not find it funny. Twitch gave him a ban of 14 days, then upgraded it to a permanent ban, as the harassment spiraled way beyond anything he could control. And from there, the bans just kept stacking up, like the previously mentioned Wimbledon ban over the air horn, ban from the US Open final, a lifetime ban from every NBA and WNBA event, banning for trespassing at a mall in Houston, and banned from the Louvre for hanging a Mona Lisa with his own face. But here's where JiDion did something that almost nobody in his position ever does. He actually apologized. Not a Notes app apology either. A real one, and Pokimane accepted it, and within a month the two of them were collaborating like old friends. While Twitch rejected appeal after appeal, he signed a deal with Rumble and kept building instead of complaining. And when Twitch finally reversed the ban in 2024, he walked back in looking like the bigger person in a story where he'd started out as the villain. It was his first real reinvention, and it worked beautifully. It also taught him a very dangerous lesson, which is that his audience would forgive almost anything as long as the redemption arc was entertaining enough. Then came the reinvention nobody saw coming. In late 2023, the internet's biggest troll posted a video called Goodbye JiDion and announced he was quitting pranks entirely to follow Christianity. He said an Uber driver told him he'd go straight to hell if he died that day, and apparently that conversation changed everything. He deleted most of his old pranks, launched a second channel for Christian content, started hosting Bible studies with actual pastors, picked up boxing, threw himself into charity work, and even got honored by a small city for making a positive video about it. The centerpiece of the new JiDion was EDP Watch, where his team posted as minors online and confronted the men who showed up to meet them, and the results were undeniably real, with actual arrests and actual convictions coming out of his stings. And to be honest, what makes this really remarkable is that creators almost never survive changing audiences, because the people who subscribed for chaos rarely stick around for church. But JiDion somehow carried millions of viewers from mal pranks all the way to sting operations. On paper, the troll had become a public servant. On paper. Which brings us right back to that McDonald's parking lot in June 2026. JiDion and another streamer were trying to force out an alleged squatter. Their crew followed the man to a McDonald's, and when police told them to leave the property, they came back anyway. An officer warned him again. JiDion asked the cop if he really had nothing better to do, and minutes later he was in handcuffs, giving that multi-millionaire speech to a body cam that made sure the entire world would hear it. Now, the man in that footage doesn't really look like the humble Christian creator he'd spent 3 years building. That's the 2022 troll wearing his clothes, the arrogance, the "do you know who I am" energy, the total certainty that consequences were for other people. Every bit of it contradicted everything he'd been preaching, and his own fans saw the hypocrisy instantly. A predator catcher with open criminal cases of his own is a gift to every defense lawyer he'll ever face. To his credit, JiDion understood it faster than anyone. In his final video, he admitted he'd been spiraling and losing the plot, that he'd burned 6 figures on legal fees over something completely unnecessary, and that whenever someone in chat typed the word boring, something flipped in him that made him escalate.
You know, you see somebody in the chat say boring or L stream or something like that, and then it flips a switch in you where you want to be more entertaining.
Then he said that streaming, in his own words, made him the worst version of himself, and so he quit forever. So the prankster became the troll became the Christian became the boxer to the predator catcher, and the predator catcher ultimately became the guy in the back of a squad car. Maybe he's saying the truth in his apology video. Maybe he really will be different this time. But when a man has already been this many different people, you have to wonder whether there's a version of him left that his audience hasn't already stopped believing in.